Flowisdom 1. So, you want to be a performer. Spread the flow. You probably discovered flow arts the same way as I did, wandering around a rave with dilated pupils. Or perhaps you were at a barbecue and your buddy busted out some flaming nunchucks. Maybe you were scrolling Instagram and the algorithm blessed you with footage of a pixel dragon. However you came across flow arts, we can all tell. You're hooked. Within your commitment, one of the promises you made yourself is to share your passion through performance. You know that your discipline will inspire and your elegance will attract. You feel a burning desire to be validated for your hard work. My friend, your heart's in the right place. Now there's 1,000 distractions, but you somehow found your focus. You found that dancing with props causes anxiety to fade. During those flow states, interpersonal stressors lose their grip. Politics lose their appeal. Drama all but dissolves. But would that beautiful state of mind translate to a stage act? Would you be able to bring this profound display of skills to others if they were all watching you? There's only one way to find out, my friend. You must perform. We all have unique origin stories, but there is no end to this journey. Flow arts provide muscle memory and perspective that develop us forever. Spinning, juggling, balancing, passing, and programming props will always challenge us. We can't mute the intrepid explorers that run our creative minds. That part of our psyche has been awakened and can't be put to rest. We've opened Pandora's box. Ponder about performances. How do we leverage our innate desire for validation while simultaneously providing others what they want? Is there a mutually beneficial arrangement for artists to achieve self-actualization while audiences achieve entertainment? And is performance the only way for flow artists to be validated? To answer these questions, we must first look within. We need to look at our criteria for fulfillment. Do we really need the approval of strangers? Do we really need to get paid for our art? Do we really need to memorize choreography and execute it flawlessly to enjoy dancing? And while these questions take the form of yes or no questions, they exist on a spectrum. Yes, we do need the approval of strangers to survive, but to what degree do we want it for our art? No, we don't need to get paid for our art, so how do we know what to charge? And no, we don't need to execute flawless choreography, but we daydream about it. Think independently or achieve average results. In order to become independent thinkers, our goals need to exist outside mainstream media, social groups, and even our childhoods. There's no guide that tells a performer what they can become. Only our imaginations guide us on this journey. As aspiring performing artists, we must spend a lot of time alone, honing our craft. We can't expect to be independent thinkers if we're constantly distracted by random stimuli. To go beyond the mainstream, we need to visualize our dreams, plan our actions, and seek mentorship. We need to attempt to become the best versions of ourselves and then share that version publicly. It's not easy. It requires working on ourselves more than the average person is willing to do. It requires negative feedback from our inner critic. It even costs us friendships, but in the end, the challenge is worth the cost. New friends will emerge on the other side of all that hard work. So embrace the challenge. There's no book that can align our mentalities with healthy expectations. There's no seminar we can attend that will motivate us to train at sunrise. There's no prop that will not be frustrating at times. Flow arts performance isn't an easy endeavor. This is a lifelong journey that will require you to roll a lumpy boulder up a hill many times. Performance slots require competition even if you're not competitive. Venue owners and promoters care more about ticket sales than treating artists like you like a star. Private clients don't owe you explanations when they cancel your role at their party. So prepare yourself for an emotional roller coaster. Don't expect the same joy from a performance lifestyle that you would get from spinning in your living room. You're stepping into an environment where failure is more common than success. This is not for the faint of heart. All the topics in this book take a long time to grow roots in your mind. These are not juggling patterns with numbered sequences or one-liners to elicit cheap laughter. These topics are unconventional. If you publicly inquire about these strategies online, you'll be roasted. Other performers will call you foolish for relying on strategies that they didn't use. Maintenance isn't growth. Remember, those who already have performance careers rarely give advice on how to build one. They usually give advice on how to maintain careers, which is different from what I'm offering here. They conveniently forget what it took to get there. they often don't want to admit what they actually did to defeat competition and their own demons. The artists with lucrative recurring contracts and performance slots at Flow festivals don't want to talk about their free gigs. It's bad marketing for them to admit that they were not built different, as we say. In fact, it's bad for most actors and musicians to discuss their first projects. They usually reach the top and want to bury what it took to get there. For example, my favorite actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, played the role of a mentally handicapped boy in the movie What's Eating Gilbert Grape? Many modern actors wouldn't be willing or even able to play the role so well that they'd get more acting gigs. And granted, Leo earned like $75K as a 19-year-old, but the point is, it's not an ideal role for many actors trying to start a career as a serious actor. Beginners need to grow. Professionals need to maintain. It frustrates me to see advice that recommends maintenance strategies for growth stages. For beginning performers, it's not about the money yet. So many professionals have led beginners astray, I felt the need to craft this guide. So let's talk about my unique guidance. I've been taking meticulous notes since I first started performing in 2014. As I trained to become an English teacher, I also trained to become a flow arts instructor and performance coach. As I got new gigs, I wrote down how I got them. When I failed, I relived those moments through journals to force growth. When I succeeded, I relived those moments through journals to create roadmaps to fulfillment. I've written 90 articles, which are also available on my website. This book is laid out to be easy to read, discuss, and implement. Each chapter has an essential question, a story, an explanation, and an actionable step. If you answer the question, relate to the story, understand the explanation, and take action, you will be successful as a performer. I personally guarantee that even if you only use 1 of 10 strategies, you will get paid to spin or juggle props on a stage. If you find yourself stuck, I'm happy to offer free consultation. My promise is that we'll work together until you land your first gig. From there, you'll be ready to book yourself without guidance. So here's my resume. I broke it down into 3 sections for credibility. I've been performing for money for 10 years, I've been teaching English for 5 years, and I've spent 5 years selling industrial products. As such, I'm a good performer, writer, salesman, and mentor. If my past isn't the type of mentorship you seek, that's okay. There's other mentors out there. I've researched 3 other professional flow arts performance guides, and I was not satisfied. While they were okay, they didn't speak to me. In this book, I created a guide for a past version of myself. If you're like I was, then this should speak to you. I believe in you. Before we begin, I'd like to congratulate you for investing in yourself. I'd like to congratulate you on committing to the millennial's dream, monetizing your passion. I'd like to congratulate you on starting your journey as an entrepreneurial entertainer. The chapter topics follow this order. Chapter 1, you don't need a perfect social media profile. Chapter 2, Gig Salad, The Bash, and Bark.com. Chapter 3, printed materials are underrated. Chapter 4, Muggles don't know what flow arts are. Chapter 5, don't be ashamed to perform for free. Chapter 6, learn to dance to all musical genres. Chapter 7, most flow arts gigs don't pay well. Chapter 8, embrace support roles for years. Chapter 9, you won't get the gig when you want it. Chapter 10, the best marketing photos involve crowds. Chapter 1, you don't need a perfect social media profile. As you read, ponder this. How effective is social media at attracting leads anyways? You'll learn how to explore alternative methods to present promo to clients. Remember, sales skills are more effective than social media engagement. And as a call to action, you can jumpstart your performing career by pitching to local venues until you get booked. Now, when a solo performer begins his or her or their journey, it's tempting for them to live through an online persona. Their logic goes like this. Well, I'm ready to be a professional performer now, so I need a profile that matches my mentality. After all my leads are going to use my page as a brochure to decide if they want to hire me. Now, they are correct. However, social media activities shouldn't be the primary marketing task. I've got 6 reasons why social media shouldn't be your primary marketing task. Your posts won't show up on clients' feeds. Gig platforms already run SEO, search engine optimization, so just leverage them. Your photos and videos aren't professional quality. Your other posts aren't related to performing. The client will get distracted while using Instagram and looking at your page. And finally, you can't answer questions in real time. Now, this chapter would be misleading if I didn't include the benefits of social media for marketing, so here they are as well. It's convenient to scroll through an artist's Instagram profile. Don't overlook that. Built-in video editing software gives the impression of professional quality. Comments prove that others value your art. Other artists can share your page with their audience. And finally, photo and video file formats work on every device. Simply put, it's convenient. Now, let's talk about why your outreach is better than their algorithm. Unfortunately, the likelihood of a client discovering your page and deciding to book you via DM is low. On the rare instance that someone actually wants to proactively research and book a performer, they're far more likely to start with Google than an Instagram hashtag. You're far more likely to pick a venue or event, reach out to a party planner, and book your first gig with a pitch than with a post. You're far more likely to meet qualified leads from Gig Salad or The Bash than scrolling Instagram or Facebook. You're far more likely to raise a client's impulse through an engaged conversation than through captions on your post. So, if cold calling venues is the superior option, why don't we all do it? I call this section Rise from the Ashes. Well, consider the underlying danger of active marketing. Rejection. As we know, there is no rejection on social media. It's just hearts. They got rid of the thumbs down icon years ago, so it's all positive energy. While the abundance of dopamine and absence of sadness is great in itself, it also fails to prepare amateur performers for rejection. So how does rejection make artists stronger? Well, rejections cause confusion, so our minds brainstorm solutions. For example, if I apply to perform at a Flow festival and get denied, I look at the artists who did get accepted and pick one element of their craft to emulate. If the decision makers chose someone else over me, I'm going to reverse engineer the criteria of that decision maker and try to fulfill it next time. So do yourself a favor and go get rejected. Just go get that first one out of the way. Apply at a venue where rejection wouldn't hurt. Practice the pitch. Fumble over your words in front of someone who doesn't matter. Then immediately go do it again. Get used to delivering multiple pitches back to back. Get used to thinking, okay, I can check this venue or event off the list now. I didn't even have social media when I landed my first gigs. The first gig was from an ad I posted on Craigslist, and the second was from a resort manager who saw me spinning poi on the beach. Escape the competitive circus. I know artists with amazing Instagram profiles who struggle to get basic gigs. I know artists with half-assed Instagram profiles who get booked for all sorts of gigs. While social media is a great portfolio, it can't make up for sales skills. On the other hand, good sales skills and some professional photos can make up for a small follower count or sparse profile. Break free of the competitive circus and drive your own narrative, independent of algorithms. My first gigs. So speaking of narratives, here's a few to illustrate the alternative methods of presenting promo. My very first paying gig was in the Chicago suburbs. I drove from Milwaukee with my girlfriend and 2 friends to a Halloween party. I posted to Craigslist and this gig was the result. I didn't even have Facebook or Instagram. The client saw my ad on Craigslist, which was just a short paragraph about what I did, and that was enough. I simply wrote, I'm a fire performer, and if you're having a backyard party, I'll come do a show. I didn't even have any videos of me. This goes against what many marketing experts will tell you. It's common advice to have the perfect bio, pinned posts, and hashtags before reaching out. What this assumes is that clients will somehow see your art and decide to book you. And while it can happen, it's rare. My second self-booked gig was in Florida. I lived a block away from a retirement community. I dropped in 3 times, smiling, dressed nice, and groomed each time. I chatted up the front desk person, took their card, complimented the architecture, and connected on a personal level. After a few visits, I eventually landed a meeting with the activities director. They respected my persistence and professionalism. I wound up getting a 1-hour entertainment slot, and it took me a few weeks to prepare. I nailed it and wound up learning that this market is easy and relaxing to perform in. There's no way my Instagram or Facebook profile would have come up in their feed. Only by believing in my ability to schmooze and entertain the elderly did I land this gig. Now my third self-booked gig had a way better crowd, and yours will too. When I first started visiting the large restaurant called Lulu's in Destin, Florida, I was stopping by on my way home from work. I kept asking for the manager, and on my third visit, I got him. He was too busy, but that handshake started the process. I followed up with an email, which led to a phone call, which led to an interview. But I always made sure to set the meetings during the restaurant's downtime, 2:30 p.m. Understanding restaurant business hours and the rhythm where they have a lot of business for lunch and then not much in between lunch and dinner and then a lot for dinner, understanding those hours allowed me to pitch during a time when the manager could think proactively. I encourage you to use this time frame to your advantage as well. I actually left work early one day to make that meeting. In order to meet them at that time, I had to be strategic. Once I realized that this strategy works, I started replicating it at other restaurants with beachfront properties. I wound up stopping into others and using Lulu's as a reference. Not only does this work in theory, but in practice, many restaurant managers know each other personally, so they can call each other and confirm that you're good to go. I do recommend using printed materials in this process, but more on that in Chapter 3. Now, let's talk about websites compared to an Instagram profile. A common question clients ask is, do you have a website? There's two ways to answer this. No, I just have this. You send them a media file or a link, or yes, here it is, a link to my website. So don't ever give up just because you don't have an official website yet. If you do have a website, there's still no guarantee that the client will sell themselves in your performance. You still have to hold their hand throughout the process, no matter how amazing your website is. Now, what the client is implying by using the word website is actually portfolio. If you have an actual website, that's great, but don't get too excited. I like to say a website is like a spoiler on a sports car. You don't need it, it doesn't make you go faster, and sometimes observers wonder, why do they even have that? Top performers have websites. You're not there yet. You just need media files, an Instagram profile, and a YouTube video. Keep the conversation going. If you find yourself in a conversation with someone inquiring about your videos, ask these questions to stimulate their curiosity. Does this type of act appeal to your typical audience here? Have you ever seen this type of performance before? Would you be willing to share this video with any other decision makers? These will keep the conversation flowing. Remember, sales skills are more effective than social media engagement. And at this point, when I talk to beginners, I don't even really inquire about their skill. I assume that they're confident enough to put themselves out there. And if they are, just start calling venues where people get together. It really starts with wherever you're comfortable. You can pick an apartment, a retirement community, a restaurant, a church, a private school, a grand opening. The sky's the limit. When it comes to pitching your performances, don't look at social media. That's where other people perform. What if you're not comfortable at a Flow Festival stage? But what if you found yourself super comfortable in front of kids? You don't know what your niche is until you try all of them. So just start putting yourself out there. I know rejection and sales skills are cringe. We're artists and we don't want to have to do this. But trust me when I say it's totally worth it. Going out and reaching out to venues and party planners is the first step in this journey. If you don't take this first step, it's just exceedingly unlikely that someone's going to believe in you enough to get you that first gig. It does happen, but when I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't think I was an exception. I thought I was pretty average. In fact, I thought I was below average. And so I took steps to basically sponsor myself. I believed in myself when no one else did. And the little sales skills I had provided a huge return on investment because those first few gigs gave me the confidence and the joy I needed to continue this journey. Chapter 2, Gig Salad, The Bash, and Bark.com. As you read, ponder, how do artists secure gigs on competitive websites? You will learn how to leverage proven strategies for each website. And walk away remembering, timing, tone, and templates make this process easier. As a call to action, you can jumpstart your performing career by setting up these sites. If you want to book your passively generated leads, commit to this. Create professional profiles, respond to leads with custom messages immediately, and close with confidence. While I do teach active outreach, it's exhausting. On the other hand are the passive lead generating sites, which are quite pleasant. Waking up to a lead is a wonderful feeling, and if you apply some of this flow wisdom, you'll get to experience that. How each platform works, starting with gigsalad.com. Gigsalad provides leads directly to your phone or email. You then click a few buttons and you're either messaging the prospect or sending a quote. You can create and save templates for faster responses. Your pictures, videos, and reviews are all conveniently on your profile page. It has a great user interface on smartphones and integrates smoothly with texts and emails. Gig Salad is also the only app with a dedicated fire dancing section. Every single fire dancer should have a Gig Salad profile. There is a premium version that provides the prospect's phone number, so instead of interfacing through the app, you can just call or text leads. They appreciate it more than you'd think. I've had so many clients respond happily when I just call them right after I see the lead. You can expand your geographical reach by purchasing other territories too. For example, I live in Portland but was booking my friends in Boise for a while. I created an extension to my main city for about $100 a year and used my sales skills to book them in their own city. Performers travel a lot for gigs anyways, so this is a great strategy if you want to perform in new cities. The free membership lists you at the bottom, but you can still respond to leads. The pro membership is $359 a year. I think it changes per city and state, but I'm not sure. The featured membership for me was $479 per year. Basically, the pro and featured options put you at the top of the list when clients look you up without broadcasting a lead. So not only do you show up in Google searches, but also when they create an event, you show up first. It's really nice. Next is thebash.com. The Bash is basically the same as Gig Salad. It costs less and it provides less leads. I've never booked a fire performance directly from the Bash, but I do see that some others have. There is a fire dancing section, but it's not promoted as much as the circus arts. I call the Bash Gig Salad 2.0 because it's the same format and it's just not as good. The basic membership is $129 per year and the pro membership is $219 per year. Third, we have Bark.com. While Bark provides the most qualified leads, it comes at the highest price. Each lead costs about $15 to contact. That's right, you pay per lead on Bark. You can drive down the cost of the leads by purchasing credits in bulk, but then you're investing like $400 a time in credits. It's a painstaking process to spend that amount of money, but for some performers, I'm sure it's worth every penny. I do use Bark mainly for DJ events. My minimum's $700 and maximum's like $2,500, so it's easier to justify the investment in all those Bark leads. As you already know, I bring my props to the events where I DJ, so I often get to perform as a flow artist. I also try to upsell a And while this website does connect you to hosts of events before they happen, they're not specifically looking for fire or LED entertainers. With this in mind, sales skills are crucial if you're going to use this website. It's possible to convince a party planner that they should hire entertainment, like especially at weddings, so I encourage every aspiring performer to try at some point. Because if your profile, sales acumen, and offer pique the curiosity of a bride, you could book a $1,000 wedding performance. Now let's talk about your professional profile. When it comes to Gig Salad, Bark, and the Bash, you only need 3 elements: media, your bio, and reviews. These elements provide visual and written proof that you're a good performer. Creating all 3 profiles should take you an hour or so. When it comes to media, blurry photos won't get the job done. It's better to have crisp photos of you posing than blurry photos of you performing. I recommend having at least 10. I know it's a lot when you first start. The sheer number of photos, it adds to your credibility. When it comes to a bio, it's better to have bullet points listing your accomplishments or options than a paragraph that tells your life story. Clients don't like to read about your passion. They like to read about how their audience is going to perceive you. When it comes to reviews, only send the link to customers or friends that will write you a 5-star review. Don't risk your reputation if the gig didn't go well. This is why I recommend sending the review link the day after the gig. Now here's some great phrases you can use in your bio. As a professional fire dancer, I dazzle audiences with dynamic movements. As a professional LED juggler, I engage. In addition to stage acts, I also engage the crowd with interactive moments. I offer both fire and LED entertainment, sometimes both. I entertain crowds with a variety of performance props and dance routines. Crowds always appreciate my energetic entrance and humorous antics. Wedding parties love taking pictures with my fire props after the show. Kids at school events are always inspired after I perform and tell them that practice is the key to mastery. Guests take a ton of great photos when I juggle fire at backyard birthday parties. All right, let's get into my list of 10 starter tips. So, number 1, start with Gig Salad. Gig Salad is the absolute best for fire dancers. It has a specific category for fire dancers. The other 2 don't. If you were to only focus on one, it should be gig salad. Number 2, win with low prices at first. Remember, you're competing with other artists. You're most likely going to win with a low price for your first few gigs. Seasoned performers have more reviews, better pictures, and stronger communication typically. They're naturally going to charge more. So try to find some clients who care about price and offer a package that makes them feel like they're getting a great deal. Number 3, learn the process. None of these attempts will convert without sales skills. You'll need to follow a sales script or some sort of outline. Even if the client is ready to book you and you're ready to perform, there's still a process that must occur. You can easily botch the deal even if it feels like a guaranteed win. Make sure you know what it means to close a deal. For professionals, that's a deposit and a signed contract. Number 4, get reviews immediately. Reviews can be attained by simply sending a link to your friends and family. I recommend asking a few close friends who have seen you flow to leave a review that highlights your unique style. Number 5, respond before your competition. It's imperative that you set up phone notifications so that you can be the first to respond to leads when you get them. A good lead will convert very quickly in a competitive environment, so try to be the first to contact the client. Number 6, call, don't text if you can. Get comfortable with phone calls rather than text messages. It takes 5 to 10 minutes of focused conversation to discuss safety, theme, venue restrictions, parking, and other details. Always leave your phone number and request a phone call. Ask for their phone number and a time to schedule a consultation call. You should have a checklist of questions that you ask to see if you're the right fit. Now 7, a little controversial, it's kind of a slime ball move, but you can create a fake event on Gig Salad. You can create a customer profile in the app and put out fake leads to see how other performers respond. You'll know their prices, verbiage, and timing. Oftentimes, you'll see lower prices than what those performers told you they'd offer, if you see what I'm saying. This strategy lifts the veil on standardized pricing and shatters the illusion that performers are honest about pricing. Number 8, quote strategically. If you see the numbers for a price range, their budget range was $400 to $700, I recommend coming in at $400, and then once you have a conversation going, you tell them that was just your basic package, and then you upsell them to a better package. So when you see a price range, it's beneficial to quote below the highest number because your competitors are going to quote below you, and then they're actually going to have a conversation with that prospect. Because many customers respond to the price, not the actual message. You can always upsell them once you have their attention. Just let them know you were quoting the... Number 9, always include pictures. Many apps allow you to send a photo in addition to text. Always include a picture because the combination of verbal and visual is more powerful. Now, sometimes it's hard to find how to include a picture attachment. Like in Gig Salad, for example, you have to click an unlabeled paperclip. Yeah, so let me say that again. When you're in Gig Salad, there's no include attachment. It's just a random paperclip you have to click. And then you always want to have a good performance photo of you because, as my landlord taught me, our brains are in our eyes. And if that prospect sees a good picture, it's more likely to get the gig. For example, if your pitch says, "I'm great with kids," and you include a picture of you with smiling kids, your word. And number 10, custom messages. Now, I know in this chapter I talk about using templates to save time, but templates don't show the client that you care about them as an individual. Take the time and customize your templates. Use their name, refer to details of the event and venue, and start a conversation. Don't just pitch your service, discuss the event. Now, as you can see, there are 2 ways to run your sales: the easy way and the hard way. The easy way feels like you're making progress, but you're often not. The hard way feels like it's a lot of extra work, especially at the beginning, but it's necessary at first. If you need motivation, just remember that you could be a performer for the next 20 years. Create a strong foundation and reap the rewards from now on. I want to go back to immediate responses. I can't overstate the importance of fast responses. It's the easiest and most effective way to win. If your Gig Salad or Bark messages get ignored, there's a chance that it's simply because your competitor quoted and closed first. You may have been a better match at a better price, but the client just wanted to get somebody booked and move on with their life. After all, booking performers can be exhausting. Now, I have notifications disabled for most social media and apps and stuff, but the text alerts are always on for leads. Gig Salad and The Bash offer really convenient text notifications, but I have to actually check my email for bark.com. So make it a priority to check every morning, and you'll often be the first performer to make contact. After all, your competition might be sleeping till noon. Let's talk about professional tone. An unprofessional tone, when combined with unprofessional clothing, can cost you the second meeting. Remember, many decision makers are judgmental boomers. You must play their game in order to play your own game later. Show up to their venue and speak how they speak. Here's some introductory phrases that establish a formal tone. Hello, I'd like to introduce myself as a professional entertainer. Do you ever host events that feature live performances? This is an incredible venue. I appreciate the architecture and decor. Hey, thanks again for taking the time to learn about my performance art. Okay, those were 3 good introductory phrases. Here are some introductory phrases that detract from a formal tone. Hey, I'm a fire spinner and I was hoping to perform here. Hey, super cool hotel. I like the art and stuff. Yeah, so look at my videos and then call me back after you've seen them. Don't say those to clients. Now let's talk about templates again. For years, I reinvented the wheel. I rewrote my introductory email each time I emailed a new venue or prospect. It took a lot of time and was an obstacle to establishing contact. But nowadays, I have a series of templates that I customize to save time. I still write custom messages, but for the average gig on Gig Salad or The Bash, templates usually cover about 80 to 90% of it. So let's go through some beginner templates. Feel free to use these. Note, these templates don't involve the price. That's the subject headline on Gig Salad and The Bash. I'm just focusing on the phrasing, the sort of communication, the words here. The way I do this is I always try to find a way to connect. If you've ever watched a salesperson try to connect with a prospect, you'll notice they probe one of 3 topics: geography, food, and time spent at that location. You'll see an increase in gigs if you connect personally, so always try. In these templates, I prompt a personal connection with at least one of these avenues. Now, obviously, you can connect on tons of other things, but like in sales, it just seems like the geographical location, local food, and how long somebody's worked somewhere is the fastest and easiest way to connect with someone. Geography, you can sort of just compliment the area. Hey, I see that you're in this location and I heard it's beautiful in the summer. For food, you can ask about a local recommendation or ask if the party will provide food. Hey, if I grab a bite to eat nearby, is there anywhere you recommend? People love to sound like they have good recommendations for restaurants, so even if you don't go there, you can still connect in that way. And finally, time spent at that job. Ask how long they've been at that job or lived in that area. I always just say, how long have you worked here? And no matter how long they say, I always be like, oh, you must like it then, huh? Now, if it's 2 weeks, I'll usually make a different joke, but again, geography, food, and time spent working somewhere, like, it just shows that you care about them, and they love to talk about. All right, let's get into these templates now. Here's one for a backyard barbecue. Hi, name. Glad to see you're celebrating holiday by hosting a barbecue. Good food and live entertainment will keep your guests smiling all night. What you gonna be cooking? Full name here, fire juggler and dancer. My performance could be perfect for your party. Can you answer some questions about the venue, vibes, and the time frame? I'm also available at phone number if you'd like to speak on the phone. Sincerely, performer name. Here's one for a birthday party. Hi, name. Glad to see you're honoring name's special day. Live performances dedicated to a guest of honor always bring everyone together. I wish I had a fire dancer at my birthday party. Full name here, fire juggler and dancer. I would be happy to bring my craft to your party. Is there a song that would make the performance special for a name? I can adapt my dance to any venue stage. Can you give a description of the area where I'll perform? You can feel free to send some pictures over too. I'm also available at number if you'd like to speak on the phone. Sincerely, performer name. Here's one you can use for a wedding. Hi, name. Congratulations on your upcoming marriage. Month is such a beautiful time of year and location. Full name here, fire juggler and dancer. I would be honored to grace the stage for your wedding. I'd like to find out if I'm the right fit first. Few questions. What kind of music would make a fire performance truly memorable for you? What's the name of the venue? What's the theme of your wedding? I'm also available at number if you'd like to speak on the phone. Sincerely, performer name. Here's one for a grand opening. Hi, name. Congratulations for starting a business. I see that you're kicking it off right by hosting a grand opening party. I'd be honored to bring my craft to your new store. How did you decide to start a business in this area anyway? I've heard it's beautiful in this season. I'd like to add to the vibe that you're creating for this event. What kind of music will the crowd like? I'm also available at number. Here's an initial message you can use for a religious ceremony. Hello, name. Glad to see that you're treating your congregation to a live performance. I'd be honored to bring my modern performance art to be part of the celebration. Would there be any traditional food? I've always wanted to try religious food. Obviously, use the name of their religion, so Jewish, Christian, Muslim, whatever. I'd like to pick music that matches the vibe, so I'm open to musical artists and genres. Which songs and artists do you recommend? I'm also available at number if you'd like to speak on the phone. Sincerely, performer name. Okay, moving on. Just in general, I recommend replacing doom scrolling every once in a while with prospecting. Because I love to scroll, but I also love to perform. The way I combine these concepts is by scrolling Bark, Gig Salad, Google Maps, and Facebook events. All these apps have the variety I need to feed my desire for novelty, just like I would if I was scrolling a feed. For example, I often scroll Bark leads in the morning to see if I should get out of bed and make a phone call. It always gets me to stand up because you can easily tell if someone is laying in bed when you call them, and I don't want to be that guy. I also scrolled Gig Salad in the bash to see if there are any follow-up messages I should send. Now, you heard me mention Google and Facebook. These are the honorable mentions for a beginner. I scroll Google Maps by typing in luxury apartments or hotels, and I just call the lobbies to see if they're having events that need entertainment. It's my way of keeping my cold call muscle memory intact. Finally, I love to scroll Facebook events because you can just click the promoter's page and message them directly. Within 30 seconds, you can find an event that needs flow artists, copy an outreach template into a DM, and send it to a promoter. That's amazing. Think of how many people would know about you if you reached out to every outdoor event in your city for an entire summer. Even if you only closed 10% of them, you'd still book like half a dozen gigs per month doing this. Another honorable mention are wedding leads websites. While I was not successful as a fire performer using Wedding Wire and The Knot, it doesn't mean that you won't be. Even though I paid for featured banner placements on both sites and the pro version of each, I still never booked any flow arts gigs through these sites. I burned like $9,000 in 2024 on this. Pretty sad about it. Since this book is representative of my experience, I just don't recommend these sites. I don't think it's worth the large price tag. If you do end up using these sites and find success, feel free to reach out and tell me how it worked and what worked. I love performing at weddings and would love to learn how to book more. In general, when communicating on these platforms, these questions are incredibly helpful to get engagement right off the bat. Prospects can't help but converse when prompted with these. Number 1, could you tell me what you're seeking in a performer? Number 2, what have you liked about past performers? Number 3, would you be open to a consultation phone call tomorrow? Remember, timing, tone, and templates make this process much easier. Chapter 3. Printed materials are underrated. As you read, ponder, how effective are printed materials at establishing contact? You'll learn. Explore alternative methods to present promo to clients. Remember, using printed materials to set meetings is easier than emails or phone calls. As a call to action, you can jumpstart your performing career by handing out printed materials. Old school strategies still work. Of all the marketing materials that I've produced, the easiest to leverage are business cards and flyers. Why? For 2 main reasons. First, business cards and flyers put your contact information on the desk, in the pocket, or hand of someone who might want to perform. Duh. Second, when you give a business card or flyer to someone, it's also a great time to get their contact information. Now let's look at each of these in greater detail. Your card on their desk. When you give your card to someone, you must also give them a reason to call you back. Your goal is to let them know that your card can sit on their desk for weeks, months, or even years, and whenever they're ready to consult an entertainer for an event, you will pick up their call and discuss the event. All you want them to do is take the card and acknowledge that you exist. If you have a genuinely alluring aura and pitch, you can expect them to check out your Instagram page and scroll through your pinned posts. There's like a 1% chance they'll book you from this interaction, but most likely it will fall on your shoulders to follow up. That's why the secondary goal of this interaction is actually to get their contact information. The card handoff begins the process. Printed materials represent an interaction where I qualified the client, interacted in person, and likely emotionally invested enough to take good notes and plan a follow-up. The business cards are $40, but each of them represents an in-person interaction, which are often more valuable. Imagine that you bought 50 flyers that were specifically made for private schools and churches. They had an image of you performing in front of a crowd and a promotional price for private schools and churches in your area. For example, $600 summer 2024 promo for West Portland. If you actually handed out 50 flyers, got the email of the decision makers at each venue, and followed up with an email, you'd probably book at least 5 of them. As I always say, a 10% close rate for qualified clients is pretty good. Digital promo doesn't affect boomers as much. For boomers especially, printed materials are harder to throw away than an email. I don't know why, but people think twice about throwing away a nice glossy handout. Our brains are wired to respect tangible materials more than digital ones, especially if there's some type of promo on it. The time-bound nature of promotional offers drives interest. Now, in an age when digital media is king, your investment in printed materials shows that you're a down-to-earth person. When you combine old-school business tactics with a warm personality, boomers and millennials will really appreciate it. Why? Because they grew up in a time when paper was still an effective medium. That feeling of a glossy flyer might remind them of a show they saw when they were your age. However, a business card doesn't make up for poor business acumen. When you hand the card to a qualified client, treat it like a gift you're happy to give. Attach no expectations to it. Be brief, confident, and respectful. There's about a 90% chance they'll throw it away or lose it, but that's okay. If it was a 100% close rate, we'd all have gigs every weekend. This is a powerful habit. Business cards fit in your pocket but offer a big impact. Flyers are shiny little reminders that beautiful people exist and want work. There's a reason your wallet can fit business cards in it. You should always have yours on you. Yes, there's ways to tap your phones together, and you can always verbally tell someone your Instagram account, but it's just not the same. The intention and confidence of printed materials connect with a different part of your brain than a mere profile or landing page. Carrying around physical evidence that you want to perform is a reminder that you want to leave your mark. It's a healthy goal to put one business card in your wallet every day and tell yourself, I will give this to someone new today before I go to bed. And if you do that every day, you'll build the skill of pitching yourself. It takes a while. It's going to be awkward at first. It's taken me hundreds of attempts to get my pitch down, and I still make mistakes. You might hate your first business cards. You might spend an hour designing it, and when it arrives, you hate it. That's part of the process. Now, printed materials may be a step above showing somebody your phone, but they're still not enough to convert above, 10%. You have to remember that this process benefits from volume. There's no business card that's good enough to convert above 10%. That's the way I put it. Your business cards will look childish to some and professional to others. Your flyers will strike a chord with some receptionists and fall by the wayside with others. No single failure is a sign that you're on the wrong path, and no single success is a sign that you're on the right path. You need hundreds of pitches and hundreds of cards you've handed out before the pitch is actually smooth. If you're willing to pay $100 for 100 quality cards and make 100 quality visits, you're on the right track. So I'd like to wrap it up here with some tips. As you're handing over that card or flyer, try asking these questions to make follow-up calls smooth. When should I call back to see how you liked my portfolio? How does your team like to vet new vendors? Do you think this card will wind up in the right hands? Remember, using printed materials to set meetings is easier than emails or phone calls. Chapter 4. Muggles don't know what flow arts are. As you read or listen, ponder. How can we inform clients about our craft? You'll learn how to communicate with simple phrases and expand as clients express interest. You'll walk away remembering you can leverage the novelty of flow arts with the right approach. If you want to jumpstart your career with a call to action, proactively inform Muggles and leverage the novelty. Muggles. Can't live with them, can't live without them. Most of my highest paying gigs are with Muggles who have never seen a flow jam, three-point juggling, vision clubs, or spiral wraps. I can't expect them to invest in something they don't yet understand, so I often communicate in short paragraphs with a 6th grade vocabulary. You gotta pique their curiosity first. So, for example, would you hire a water treatment consultant for preventative maintenance? Would you believe them if they told you that by spending $5,000 with them, you're preventing yourself from having to spend $50,000 in the future on repairs? Of course not. At least, not at first. And I bring this up because this is what I do for work right now. I sell preventative maintenance that they know nothing about, and they're like, what? How much is it going to cost me? So I feel pretty confident with this topic. It takes a long time to educate buyers on new concepts, and when you initiate an interaction with a muggle, use concepts they already understand. Here's a list of simple phrases that leverage existing schemas, or thoughts they already have, in their mind. A fire show would make your wedding truly memorable. LED shows add magic to any nighttime event. Luau's are known for their fire dancers, and I'm not Hawaiian, but I do something similar. Every birthday party deserves an energetic performance. Now, I offer these simple examples because I've seen many flow artists use phrases such as hooping or poi spinning in their introductions, and it confuses the prospect. It's best to introduce new vocabulary after the prospect has shown interest in the concept of a performance. I know it seems ridiculous to buffer our language so much, but we want to make this process smooth. We want to follow a concise script if possible. We want a conversation that feels like a ping pong match where both parties are going back and forth. On that analogy, you don't want to ace people with a really good pitch. You don't want to just say a bunch all at once and not have them say anything back. You want to have like a 1-to-1 ratio of them talking to you talking, and then they're talking, and then you're talking. I hope that ping pong match analogy makes sense because I love that. So let's refresh your perspective. At this point, you may be dreading the process of explaining contact staff to Kathy from accounting. However, there are several delights of working with muggles. Keep these in mind to stay motivated as you book your first gigs. Since it's all new to them, simple tricks blow their minds. Watching them hold a prop for the first time is adorable. There isn't much competition. You can book paid lessons and you can sell props for like a 20% margin. They're excited to post videos of you and show their friends this cool new thing they witnessed. You'll be especially appreciated by kids. Muggles use funny phrases to describe flow arts like baton twirling for staff, pom-poms for poi, rolly stick for dragon staff, and bowling pins for juggling clubs. Muggles can offer fresh perspective on your favorite art form. I'm not kidding when I say that I've learned tricks from a 5-year-old. The accessibility of poi, staff, and hoops leads to playful connection if you're comfortable sharing your props. Now, when it comes to giving our beloved props to children, make sure to set some ground rules. Be proactive and prevent them from bashing each other with clubs, launching the props around, bending your hoops, etc. Let's circle back to 2 bullet points from above: booking lessons and selling props. I've done both of these for years, and while they're not common, it doesn't hurt to make extra money off a customer. These sales can also lead to more gigs. For lessons, I recommend charging $80 for a 1-hour session. Anything less than $100 feels affordable to most muggles for such an interesting art form, assuming you're pretty good. You can offer package deals that drop the price, but I find that like $60 to $80 per session is fair if you're a decent performer. Combine a $60 lesson with a set of poi that earns you $15 and you're sitting pretty. If you think about it, selling props adds to your credibility as well. It's a great strategy to prove that you're about that life. We all know the best artists are immersed in their craft, love to share their passion, and know how to teach the fundamentals. If you'd like to inspire muggles to book lessons with you, I recommend saying this with a huge smile. Anybody can learn this. It just takes time. When audience members are emotionally charged by your performance, they'll want to act on that impulse. Take advantage of their excitement by booking an introductory lesson right then and there. Now, I found that the best clients for lessons are rich parents with hyperactive kids. I've secured so many lessons after a performance by handing them a card that said lessons on it. I told them to text me right then and there, and I saved their number, mentally noting that I should probably follow up. Feel free to bring cheap props to your performances and let muggles play with them. That way, you can comfortably spread the flow. I still cringe watching kids play with my vision staffs and clubs because they lean on them and bend them. They're especially hard on hoops, as they can bend them even more easily. And forget about handing kids a vision club. They swing them like baseball bats immediately. Inform strategically. Anyway, let's circle back to the business of performing. A transaction will only happen if you follow these steps after you've qualified the prospect. 1. Get them excited about a performance at their event or their venue. 2. Answer safety and logistical questions. 3. Offer a price range that feels right to them. 4. Close the deal with confidence. And 5. Send an invoice or contract. Now, while getting them excited, don't let yourself get excited too. Remember, flow arts is new to them. It shouldn't seem new to you, because you might say something stupid. Let the client feel all the emotions. You can celebrate later. While answering their questions, don't raise unnecessary concerns. You might make a fire show sound unsafe. It's tempting to keep informing them more and more, because it's fun to be a teacher, but they can only learn so much at first. While offering prices, don't make it confusing. Use simple numbers like $100 or $500. Don't tack on a bunch of additional charges like mileage, costumes, fuel, etc. Just build it into the final price and show them that. When you're more experienced, you can write advanced purchase orders, but keep it simple for your first few years. While closing a deal, if you won, don't act overly excited. Act like you've done this 100 times already. If you lost, act happy just for the mere chance to inform someone about flow arts. When sending an invoice or contract, use beautiful templates that have pictures of you, branding, and personalization. Several people may see this document, so you want to leave a good impression on as many people as you can. Performance introductions. Now that we've strategically educated the clients and they've hired you, let's inform the audience on your art form. It's okay to address the audience right when you first don the stage. In fact, many flow artists skip this step and miss the opportunity to share their website, intention, and even their name. Sometimes there'll be an MC who will introduce you. You can feel free to give them a little card that lists your name, art form, and intention. You'll usually see that more at a variety show, not at a backyard barbecue. Here's some examples of opening statements you or the MC can say to the crowd, with or without a microphone. My name's Troy, these are contact swords, and I hope you enjoy this improvised dance performance. Or, Controlled Burn here, fire juggler from Portland, Oregon. I'm sure you've seen juggling before, but I have some fancy new tricks to share today. Or, hi folks, this is a flow arts performance, and I hope you enjoy it enough to learn on your own someday. Thanks for letting me entertain you. Now, let's talk about this. Performance isn't flow. By now, many flow artists know what a flow state is, right? They know it's a mental state in which the environment and time disappear and we focus on the present moment. While this is great for personal development, a typical flow state isn't ideal for a performance. An ideal performance engages the crowd, uses the whole stage, conveys emotion, and executes choreography. It requires a much wider variety of intentions. Very few artists do all that while flowing for fun. The singular intention of a flow state is practice. Leveling up, validating ourselves. A subconscious goal of a flow state is to do some tricks smoothly and then try to add a new one. This is tempting to try on stage, but it's not good for performance. An ideal performance is done with tricks we know we can do perfectly. Why? Because a performer who executes all the choreo takes the audience to another world and keeps them there. If the performer drops or tangles, the illusion is broken. We must try our hardest to preserve the illusion of perfection. Yep, we have to retrain our brains to perform for muggles. We can't just do what we want. We can't be the jazz of juggling. We aren't on stage for ourselves, we're on stage for the audience. To wrap this up, let's talk about how you can keep the conversation flowing. When introducing the concept of flow arts to a muggle, try asking these questions to find out how much they already know. Have you ever seen a fire or LED dancer before? What kinds of dance do you like watching? Does your venue like to showcase different arts throughout the year? Remember, you can leverage the novelty of flow arts with the right approach. Chapter 5. Don't be ashamed to perform for free. As you read or listen, ponder. How do businesses leverage free samples? You'll learn when to use a free sample and when to walk away. Remember, free performances, when done with intention, improve your social proof and your sales skills. Here's your call to action. Jumpstart your performance career by performing for free somewhere. Since every performer has to start somewhere, it's okay to perform for free at the beginning. I've spoken with about 10 respectable performers about this, and I've learned that most have done it and plan to continue. However, the critics online adamantly denounce free performances for good reasons that I list at the end. Simple math. Imagine that you gave a free show to a restaurant, and for every show after that, you charged $500 per performance. Let's say you perform there once a month for 5 years. Do the math and see that the free show was probably worth it. As I brainstormed this list of 5 do's and 5 don'ts, I realized something critical. You should never give a free sample show unless you have a reason. The main reason is because the client might have more events in the future, and you'll be top of mind as a paid entertainer. Secondary reasons include filming yourself, networking, and getting stage practice. If you don't go into the gig with an intention, then you wasted an opportunity. So here's some free gigs that can pay off and how. Here's a list of gigs and situations that could benefit you in ways besides money. Restaurants. You can earn weekly or monthly work as part of the live entertainment crew. Wedding venues. You can develop relationships with wedding planners who can recommend you to other brides. Nightclubs. You can earn weekly or monthly work as part of the go-go dance crew. Festivals you enjoy. You can earn free admission and accommodations to an event. Annual parties. You can get booked every year for the same event. Kids camps. Summer camps have especially good-looking crowds and stages. If you can get footage of your act in front of this crowd, you can use that to book schools later. Now here's some free gigs that don't pay off, and why. One-time parties. They will likely not hire you again because it's just a one-time event. Festivals you dislike. You won't integrate with the crowd or seem like a fun addition to the team, so they'll hire someone who actually likes the event. Busking. Unless you have an engaging act that primes and presses audience members to put money into a hat or something, it's hard to earn dollars as a flow artist. Okay, number 4 is simply unstructured kids' parties with low parental supervision. You'll basically be asked to babysit and entertain a crowd that won't appreciate your art. There will be no reverence from the crowd, and so the parents likely won't hire you back. Daytime fire shows. It rarely looks good enough to impress anyone, and as a result, there will be no reverence from the crowd, and the prospect won't see the value of the show. Try to always do this at night if you can. Now, there are some exceptions to number 5. I've done some daytime fire shows that the fire wasn't the main part of it, but if it's like a fire show, I just haven't seen an amazing one during the day ever. This list is not exhaustive, but it should have you brainstorming. If you think of any other free shows with a huge return on investment, feel free to message me and share the story. All right, reduce their risk to get your foot in the door. The goal of the free sample is to allow the customer to make an informed decision about a future good or service with no financial risk in the present. If someone's open-minded, they will try the sample and genuinely consider it as an option. If the salesperson or rep botches the taste test, then the prospect will walk away. Similarly, if the product or service doesn't live up to expectations, then the prospect, you guessed it, will walk away. Many will walk away and you'll never know why. However, each rejection should give you feedback that improves your approach next time. The point is this: there's no risk to a free sample at a grocery store, but on the other hand, there is a lot of risk to hiring a performer. Flow artists draw attention to the venue, light props on fire, throw objects near the audience, affect customer experience, and distract from other features. Prospects don't want to be the first person who hires you, so a little bit of social proof goes a long way. In other words, combine your promise of entertainment with the confirmation of a 5-star review, or even just the phone number of someone who will vouch for you. You could say something like, "I'm going to be an amazing performer someday, but I just need a stage to prove myself." And if the prospect likes you, they'll be excited to help you. I've had several clients tell me they believe in me and that they're glad they got to see me in my fledgling stage. Some people will want to help you simply because they appreciate the arts. They just might not have the budget yet. Recurring business is often achieved through a trial. One of the first metrics a sales expert will track is the CAC, or cost to acquire a customer. This is the index of ad spend, lead generation, sales outreach, and cost of printed materials. With that in mind, flow artists must acknowledge that it takes money to make money. In our case, it takes a show to build a show. There's always a cost associated with earning new business. The key is to keep the cost to acquire a new customer lower than the payout. If it only costs one night, a can of white gas, and 30 minutes to drive to a venue, you're not out that much money. Relax. This footage that you get from a gig near your house, let's call it a 4 out of 10, right? You use that 4, then you pitch to a 5, then you film that 5, use that footage to get a 6. If you're starting at a 1 or a 2, in terms of a 1 out of 10 of how good the gig is, it's probably not going to be paid. I'm sorry. By now, you're aware that the best business models have recurring customers. With recurring business, you're not constantly doing sales activities. Sales are exhausting. Do whatever it takes to get past that stage so you can refocus on your art. With the CAC already paid, you can focus on investing in the art again. After all, you got to spend money to make money, right? I was a professional sales rep for a large corporation, and my free sample budget was $40,000. I spent $60,000 before they told me to stop. In addition, they provided me a corporate credit card with an additional $40,000 of expenses budget. This card was for dinners, golf trips, and even strip clubs. Yep, the corporations understand that big deals close when they invest in the relationship first. Now, why don't flow artists understand this important dynamic? Well, we're a community of dancers and jugglers. Very few of us have the business experience to spot patterns, let alone repeat them. Let me tell you about the times when I threw away diamonds. Let's focus on one specific deal to illustrate the point. My biggest deal took over a year, but I closed a $225,000 deal with a ceramics manufacturer by providing free samples of diamond abrasives for about a year first. They had to test the product on different ceramics and compare them to the previous product they were using. The crazy part is that I wound up throwing away hundreds of diamonds in the process. They were never even used. I ordered the wrong grit, the wrong size, and the wrong attachment type. I opened the package, realized my mistake, and threw away a handful of diamonds, multiple times. Now, these weren't polished, like princess cut diamonds you'd put in a ring. It just looked like sandpaper. But the mineral was diamond. If I had quoted this product without offering free samples, I would never have gotten the business. Why? Because my abrasives were over 10 times the price per unit. The purchasing department would have just said no based on price. So I had to drive the demand by making the operator like the product, who then relied on the tool expert to talk to the production manager, who then spoke to the purchasing department. Capiche? Here's a free show template. This is sort of the dynamic of how this all unfolds. First, you'll speak to the event planner about performing. Second, you'll speak to the manager about timing, location, and safety. Third, you'll speak to some hourly employees about crowd management and safety again. Then, after you've performed, hopefully filmed yourself, posted to social media, tagged the venue, you'll speak to their social media manager about how great the event was. Again, just to recap, if this is a free show, you've talked to an event planner, a manager, some hourly employees, and whoever manages their social media. That's 4 people. If you're wondering why would you do a free show, this is why. These 4 contacts you're making in the footage. Now at this point, you're ready to speak to the qualified buyer, which will be the 5th person. You have enough proof to say, I made your event better and I'd like to do it again. You can rely on the conversations with other venue employees to prove your point. You need lots of evidence that you're a good investment before the buyer believes you. Here's a good way of knowing you followed this process. A buyer will actually approach you and say, we'd like to hire you again. What is your rate? When that happens, you'll actually be able to charge more because now they're emotionally invested and love your show. Remember, qualified buyers make emotional decisions and then rationalize with logic after they've made the decision to buy. Emotion first, logic later. People buy on emotion and use logic to support that emotion. I've closed deals where the customer was super excited to see me, but I wasn't in their budget at first. All I did was circle back to them each week with an enticing new aspect of my performance, a photo or a joke or something. A meme, I don't know. After a month, they told me they actually had the budget after all. Well, would you look at that? It turns out that their emotions overpowered their logic. The only way you'll ever get a buyer to want you emotionally is through social proof or a free show. If you don't have social proof, it's just your words. If words and promises were all it took to close, I'd be a millionaire. Now let's talk about the difference between maintenance, and growth. Remember, most experts are giving you advice on what it takes to maintain their current state, not what it took to get there. With that in mind, ignore anyone who tells you that stage time is always a paid endeavor. You're at your beginning and you need to do whatever it takes to progress your stagecraft. Reasons I've done free shows. Number 1, there was a big crowd. Number 2, there was a person in the crowd I wanted to impress. Number 3, I wanted to prove to a date that I'm a good performer. Number 4, I believe in the charity. Number 5, I got free tickets to a concert. Number 6, I had the chance to vend at the event and made money that way. Number 7, I needed to know if I was actually good. Number 8, it got me to learn to dance to a new genre of music. Number 9, I could show off to my students that I'm a cool teacher. And number 10, it allowed me to connect with a romantic partner on a tangible project that we got to showcase. It was really fun. I'm curious about your reasons to perform for free. Message me and share your story and rationale. I want to create a list so extensive, online critics will begin to acknowledge that free work is simply a stage many of us work through. Also, what happened to donating our time? Do critics get mad if we donate money to charity too? I have several gigs I do every year for free. I'm not broke, so I can afford to do it. Most of the best flow artists in the community do some free shows every year. I've asked and confirmed, time after time after time. But these folks will never publicly share it with you. They know that they'll be shamed online by those with victim and scarcity mindsets. If you still have resistance to performing for free, ask yourself this: do you even have $1,000 in your bank account? If you don't even have a comma in your ATM receipt, should you really be giving financial advice? No, you should learn to save your money before coaching others how to spend theirs. It's okay to share space and let the passionate artists learn without shaming them for competing with you. Let's talk about the competitive reality. The flow arts performance community is competitive, but many with scarcity mindsets claim it isn't. Directly opposite reality. They know it is in their heart, but they say it isn't. They're relabeling reality to conserve their little slice of the pie. The fact is this: we live in a capitalist economy driven by competition. If your price to value ratio isn't better, the market will go with your competition. Do better or charge less to win. Those of us who save our money so that we can outcompete you are going to elbow you out. We're way too effective. Your complaints won't change the client-performer dynamic. It will just validate your pain. Is that really what you want? Validation? I'd rather have stage time. Again, spend money to make money. So, do pros outgrow free shows ever? Let me ask you this: when does performing for free become toxic? The short answer is never. Only when you label it as negative does it have that power. Think about this. You post your flow online for free. You like the likes, comments, and validation it provides. Why is performing at a venue any different? Many will say it's because the venue is making money off your presence and not compensating you. While they seem correct, in my opinion, they're actually wrong. The real reasons people actually go out is rarely for a flow show. You're like a cherry on top of an already completed dish. 1. People go to festivals for the dance floor. Your go-go set is like a cherry on top. It's not making the venue extra money. It's an added bonus for people who need dance inspiration. Number 2, people go to restaurants for the food and ambiance. If there's a performance, it's an added bonus. If they advertise and sell tickets to the venue and you're literally the only performer, then you should probably ask for money. But chances are, if you're reading this book, you're at the beginner stage where you're a basic act that adds some mid-level ambiance. You shouldn't be concerned about restaurants taking advantage of you like that yet. Number 3, people go to backyard parties to socialize and play games. Your performance actually takes away from their free time, and since they aren't into flow arts to begin with, they're giving you attention when oftentimes they don't want to. Often they're only paying attention to show you respect to the host. With that in mind, appreciate the opportunity to stop the flow of the party and make it all about you for a second. Really let that soak in. They didn't even know you were going to be there, and so when you go to do your fire or LED show, just appreciate the opportunity to stop the flow of the party and make it all about you for a second. Not everybody gets to do that. In general, we must keep our egos quiet when answering the question, does this venue actually benefit from my act? Truly benefiting an audience comes from setting an expectation and exceeding it. The value the event provides must outweigh the cost of attending the event. Even if it's free admission, there's still the commute, attention, and emotional costs of attending an event. So everyone paid to be there somehow is my point. I know that last one got a little convoluted, stopping the party and making it all about you, but really appreciate that. All these people have dedicated their free time to go to a party of some sort, and people really just like to chat. When you just watch big crowds, they usually just want to chat in small groups. So to interrupt that, just be really appreciative of it, and it goes a long way. Let's talk about fake standards in Sandestin, where I used to live in Florida. To illustrate my points, I'd like to share how I first learned the truth. One of my favorite recurring gigs was a weekly luau in Florida. It was on a beach, it was picturesque, and it was near my home. I honed my musical selection on that sandy stage. I will always be so appreciative that I got that gig. After performing there for like $100 for several months, I tried to negotiate with the promoters for a higher rate. I'm glad they liked me enough to be honest with me. I told them, I met with the other fire spinners in this area and we are all going to charge $200 for every fire show, so please be prepared to pay that next time. The reason I did this was because the woman who previously performed at that gig was part of my troupe. I honestly am still friends with her. I think she's cool. She told me she would only ever perform for $200, and that included the Sandestin gig. It turns out she was just flexing. It's totally false. Anyways, the two men looked at each other and laughed in my face. They told me that not only did the previous performer not charge $200, but that they would have fired me right then and there if they didn't like me. They wound up giving me a $50 raise for each show, but that made it like $150 instead of $200. I was happy but embarrassed. In this situation, I had gambled, and instead of losing, I was gracefully served a slice of humble pie. I learned that there's no standard rate. There's no fire spinners union. There's not that kind of solidarity amongst entertainers. Remember, if people claim to have a base rate, they're probably lying. You do whatever feels right, and if you upset them, ask for forgiveness instead of permission. Scarcity mindsets. Finally, let's acknowledge the context of the pessimism behind free samples in a competitive landscape. Most flow artists project their own scarcity mindsets onto you in the early stages of your performing career. Many flow artists are broke and can't plan past their next paycheck. Most flow artists don't have a professional sales experience. As the learning objective states, you will understand when to follow their advice and when to carve your own path. We don't need to apply all the advice our peers give us. We can think for ourselves. There will always be somebody who tells us it's wrong to perform for free. While they're logically correct about some aspects, they lack the long-term vision that you have. Try not to let them obstruct your long-term goals with their short-term judgments. After all, you have to answer to future you. You probably won't have to answer to future them. You can stump critics with these questions. Now, if you don't start performing for free, how else will you practice in front of a crowd? Should you always copy other artists' prices? How likely is a competitor to tell you the truth? And my favorite, does Ferrari get mad at Honda for manufacturing a cheaper car? If someone tells you that free performances are ineffective, they're ignoring the fact that you need stage time. It's how you become a better performer. You're not good enough to be a professional when you start. If someone tells you that they never perform for free, they're most likely lying. How the heck would they get good enough at stagecraft to charge the rate of a pro? The pros just went from their living room to the stage? I find that nearly impossible to believe. Let's wrap this up. When you're going to ask for money in the future, make sure to ask these questions to keep the conversation flowing. If I do a great job on my trial run, can I expect payment for future performances? What is the process for a new vendor to get added to your payment system? Who else besides you is involved in paying vendors? Remember, free performances provide social proof for future gigs. Chapter 6. Learn to dance to all musical genres. As you read or listen, ponder. How does familiarity with a song impact audience enjoyment of a performance? You'll learn how to expand your comfort level to reach more audiences. Remember, clients with large budgets feel most comfortable and satisfied with mainstream music. And to jumpstart your career with a call to action, develop choreo for country, pop, EDM, and classic rock playlists. Familiarity increases likelihood of audience satisfaction. What do country, oldies, and top 40s music have in common? I've wound up performing with a dragon staff to each of them. Though I felt sheepish at the song's intro, the audience's happiness had me in a playful flow state by the end. You too can overcome the same discomfort and win the benefits. I think awareness of the benefits will help you expand your horizons. In both Florida and Oregon, the crowds liked country music. In every wedding I've ever attended, there have been oldies and covers of oldies played for the boomers. After learning to work with this pattern instead of changing it, I've been able to prioritize their enjoyment over my own artistic preferences. If you haven't been to a lot of mainstream events lately, you haven't experienced a unique type of fun yet. Going back to mainstream life as a talented flow artist is like New Game Plus. It's a video game term that describes restarting the game with all the upgraded abilities of a developed character. Just to riff for a second, going back to mainstream events with a really unique art form, such as flow arts, is so fun because you're just doing the basic patterns and high tosses and posing, and it blows their mind. You know you could do such crazier patterns, but you're getting a huge reaction out of just your basic ones. So as you ramp up, their reaction ramps up with it. It is just so much fun to go back to the mainstream as a developed artist. I hope you get to experience it someday. Moving on, nostalgia is effective. If you want an engaged crowd, play a song that the majority of them know. If they're singing along, they're paying attention. When they know the peaks and valleys of a song's energy, they can't help but pay attention during the beat drops and high notes. Use that to your advantage. Nostalgia, line dancing, and air guitar solos wake up the older generations and re-engage them at events. For example, Journey, Queen, and AC/DC provide some great sing-alongs. If you've ever been around a crowd of boomers when Don't Stop Believin' comes on, you'll know the power of those lyrics. The look on the faces of those 50-year-olds is so heartwarming as they belt out the lyrics to the soundtrack of their youth. Again, use that nostalgia to your advantage. So here's your new homework. As the title of this chapter suggests, you must learn to dance to every genre of music. You must practice to music you dislike to expand your horizons. You must start with the 60s and work your way through the decades. You must learn to read the crowd. You must learn to change your song at the last minute. Having a backup song is quite useful. If you're willing to go through all the steps this book suggests, then I commend you. Many are not. Many claim to want to perform professionally, but aren't willing to integrate a holistic approach to music. What exactly are they resisting, you ask? Well, the challenge for many artists is that they don't want to do tasks that don't feel good. They only want to engage with the art form as self-expression and self-soothing. They're not actually willing to meet muggle crowds where they are. Good old mainstream. If the feeling of selling out and mastering pop music performances is too much, you're not doomed as a performer. It's just that the opportunities are far fewer. What I've found is that my stage acts get better when I hone my stage craft. The only way to do so is through stage time. Simply put, the more hours on stage, the better I get. And if I have to dance to some top 40s music in the process, so be it. My goal is bigger than my preferences. The subtle effect of your closed mind. Let's take this to its logical conclusion. If you hate country, you'll likely be socially isolated if you attend a country wedding. By the time you go to perform, you'll be in a weird mood and it may translate to your body language. If you find yourself going through the motions, but not really feeling it, the nagging voice of your inner critic will find aspects of the set to criticize. Don't give that voice any reasons to detract from your progress. Proactively prevent your inner critic from separating you from the performance during or after your set. Find a way to open your mind. For example, I've seen a performer with a pouty resting bitch face fulfill her go-go slot and leave with no tips, no pride, and no progress as an artist. She blamed the audience for not appreciating her art, and I validated her pain. However, I had a positive experience with the same crowd when I went out there from my slot and hammed it up. It wasn't my first rodeo, so I knew that this crowd of tourists was only going to respond if I earned it. The way I earned it was by giving them what they wanted. Proof that I'm one of them by lip-syncing the song that was playing. To give more details to this story, it was at a mainstream tourist attraction in Destin, Florida. And the hooper who went up for her go-go slot before me, she didn't like the song that was playing. And she kind of made a disgusted face at the beginning. And I was paying attention. I was like, oh, she doesn't like this. So she did her burn. She didn't even take a bow. She just kind of blew the wicks out and left. Where when I went out, I didn't care what song was playing. As long as there was a drum and a bass line, that's all I was really focused on to get warmed up. And I happened to know maybe some words of the chorus. And so I just held whatever prop it was up in the air and just sang and put the effort into like hamming it up, like I said. I put the effort into being interesting to watch rather than self-soothing myself. I hope that makes sense. Like, it was so stark to me at the time why I was getting tips and she wasn't. And it was because I connected with the music. And that's what the crowd was really there for. I've had similar experiences as I learned to DJ professionally. From the weeks leading up to a gig to song requests during an event, adapting music to achieve the customer's goals is powerful. It's basic customer service at this point. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Come prepared. Learn songs of every genre ahead of time and save for easy access later. Even better if you have some basic choreo for each of those songs. Don't get stuck dancing to a song you don't recognize if you can help it. You can proactively use Spotify playlists, the Files app on your iPhone, Google Drive, and even USB drives with your music pre-saved to ensure you have your songs with you when you go to a gig. If you want to take it to the next level, matching a costume to the theme also helps. Cowboy hats, red handkerchiefs, cowboy boots, chaps and jeans, they all earn you the right to charge more and earn a 5-star review. As you can see, we're going beyond just the music now. We've delved into visual aesthetics. As I say, you might as well go the full 9 yards. Yes, it is cringe to dress up in a character that you don't really like, but what you like is being a performer, and what you benefit from is good customer service. That's how you get 5-star reviews. You're not a clown, and you're not, there to just fully appease the customer. You have your own goals as well, but do whatever it takes to connect with the music in a way that the audience benefits from. It's not about you. It's about their enjoyment. So some night this week, lock the front door and dance to some pop music. It could be Ariana Grande or 21 Pilots, Old Town Road or Bad Guy. It doesn't matter. As long as you find a few songs you can use for a school dance, wedding, or church, you're prepared to earn 5-star reviews at mainstream gigs. Now, let's talk about pushing boundaries with music when it is appropriate. Personally, I have pushed the boundaries at many gigs. What I mean is I've played the songs I like because I wanted to bring my full artistic expression to a crowd that has never seen or heard my culture before. World bass music, for example, is a great look if you can pull it off. On the other hand, it's a bad look if you don't slay. Simply put, bringing underground EDM to muggles is risky. I like EDM remixes of pop songs because I feel the bass waves I like and they still get that familiar melody they like. Now to wrap it up, if you want to keep the conversation flowing when you're discussing music choice with a client, ask these questions to clarify their expectations. What kind of music would your audience like to hear during my performance? If I have free choice, what kind of music should I avoid? Would your audience appreciate an underground style of music? Remember, clients with large budgets feel most comfortable and satisfied with mainstream music. Chapter 7. Most flow arts gigs don't pay well. As you read or listen, ponder. Is money the best way to measure success? You'll learn how to accept the truth about your first flow arts gigs, and many for the rest of your life. Remember, only you can determine the value of your art. And that's why the call of action is to actually write down or really look in the mirror and determine what is the value of your first flow gigs. Is it the financial reward of a couple $100? Or is it the chance to jumpstart your performance career? Flow arts won't make you rich. If you became a flow arts performer for the money, you're quickly going to learn that most performing flow artists don't even earn $20K a year. After doing it for 10 years with tremendous effort and skill, I still don't earn that much. Granted, I haven't committed to performing full time, but I am on all the lead generators, maintain a strong network, and apply to select festivals. I think I'm a decent representation of healthily balanced effort. I'll always have to work a corporate job or government job to sustain my lifestyle. Truly, though, I'm okay with that. I don't need to monetize my flow arts performances to earn a livable salary. If you do need to make a living off of flow arts to be happy, I encourage you to seek mentorship beyond just me. Please document your journey so others can replicate it. A lot of us, myself included, I would love that. I would love to do flow arts full time, but I just haven't cracked the code yet. The world doesn't appreciate flow arts yet, so I keep my expectations low. The fact that it doesn't pay well should not deter a passionate artist, though. It should encourage you to create your own niche within your own market and develop relationships with recurring gigs. Only management earns big money. Just to clear the air, there's nobody actively earning massive money from just flow arts. Cirque artists certainly rake it in with recurring halftime shows, residencies, and corporate gigs, but they're in a different tier from us. Cirque is not flow arts. Now, I have heard rumors of a poi spinner who earns 6 figures. What I believe this means is that their company earns 6 figures of revenue. That's excellent, but it doesn't mean the profit is $100,000. It means that they've earned $100,000 worth of gigs in that city. Once it's split up between performers, the number drops for that individual. Who earns the most in the troupe, though? The manager or company owner? Yeah. Yep. That's why this section is called Management is what earns the big money. The person who does sales, marketing, insurance, coordination, contracts, scouting, consulting, and branding earns the most. Their executive functions deserve a cut of every performance, and then their performances earn great payouts. Awesome, right? It depends. Fulfilling those duties, putting out fires, pun intended, and managing performers takes the fun out of dance. It takes the magic out of stagecraft. It turns a playful activity into a job. Many want this, do it, and then realize they don't want it. Regardless of the pitfalls, there are millions of dollars out there you can earn if you have the heart and stomach to be an entrepreneur. Speaking of which, let's talk about Ben Drexler, aka Drex Factor Poi. Drex's breakdown. The only flow artist who has done an actual breakdown of income earned is Drex, but none of it came from performing, so to speak. While he used to perform, he is now a full-time content creator. Working from home seems to appeal to him more than traveling for performance and teaching gigs. That being said, there's nothing for us here, but let's examine his income kind of just for fun. He made $48,000, I think it was in 2023 when he did this breakdown. Affiliate income, $2,500. His discount codes earn him a commission. So you see he's sponsored by Flow Toys and Ultra Poi. If he makes, $10 off each sale, maybe $20, it totaled up for $2,500. It's pretty good. Classes. He has an e-learning portal and charges for modules. He earned $5,500 from that. Ad revenue, $7,000. His YouTube videos pay a commission for ads. So he's a successful YouTuber. Straight up sponsorships, $9,000. He makes videos featuring his sponsors' products. Again, Flow Toys and Ultra Poi pay him to make videos because he's a good editor and dancer. And finally, Patreon, $23,500. He offers one-on-one workshops and tutoring. As you can see, this breakdown teaches us that there's not a lot of money in performing. Many performers go to 3, 4, in this case, 5 different income sources to make a living off of Poi. Well, now that I think about it, I guess we can say that Drex is actually still kind of a performer. His sponsorship videos are choreographed dance numbers, so while it's not live, it's still a display of his skill. So perhaps there is potential for performers to earn money without a live audience. Only time will tell if anybody else can charge for that the way that Drex does. Moving on, let's discuss kind of a hot topic online, which is the $500 minimum. Honestly, a $500 minimum for a gig is pretty rare for me, for a flow arts gig. Most of my favorite gigs don't even pay half that. Granted, I have some unicorns that pay over $1,000, but I only get a few of those per year. In 2020 and 2021, I didn't have any payouts with a comma. Eventually, you'll stumble across some of the gigs that do pay well, and you should defend those with every strategy you can. When you earn more than $500, take pride in being a professional performer. So let's explore my averages in Florida and Portland. Private schools paid around $500 for a fire show. Weddings pay about $500 for a fire show. Backyard barbecues in rich neighborhoods pay about $250. Festivals vary greatly. Fairs pay well but require many shows across several weeks. Kids' birthday parties in rich neighborhoods pay about $250 for a fire or LED show. Church events pay $500 for religious events. And waterfront restaurants pay about $150 for a solo fire show. As you can see, each of these will likely have lots of overhead costs. The profit margins aren't great. If you had a gig every day for a month, you could earn between $5,000 and $10,000, but only if you only have them on the weekends. That's not a livable wage. So again, $5,000 or $10,000 in a month is good. I mean, that would be incredible because that would be, let's say you made $5,000 a month, that's $60,000 a year before taxes, and $10,000 a month would be over $100,000 in a year before taxes. So you'd be doing pretty good. But that's a gig every day. The sales required to do that is thousands of outgoing calls. Just the amount of work you'd have to do to earn a livable wage from $200 to $400 gigs is difficult to imagine. So to get personal, even I don't earn much. Let's look at what I offer and what I'm able to garner. I'm a charismatic, young, multi-talented, multi-prop juggling and spinning dancer with his own sound equipment, insurance, costumes, and professional demeanor. I have sales skills. I have 10 years of experience. Even with all that, there just aren't that many parties in my market that value flow arts to the tune of $500 per gig. I know my reputation may take a hit for sharing the reality of my performance income. I don't really care though. I've spoken with so many other artists out there who put up the same numbers. I feel like I'm keeping a secret and I really don't want to. Now, to be specific why I don't earn much, first of all, I take a lot of gigs, and I don't have a minimum rate. I will happily perform for free or low pay, as described in Chapter 2. Secondly, I'm not the best, nor do I claim to be. I'm a mid-tier fire and LED performer who loves to play on stage. I don't always do choreography or makeup, so I'm basically one of the people at a party who happens to entertain for 15 minutes at the party's climax. I don't have strict boundaries set up to differentiate me from the party peeps. Since I'm having fun and getting social value from the party, I don't charge that much. I'd rather perform and earn a little bit and stand out than socialize and just blend in. Okay, this one is a little bit prickly. Don't trust your competitors' claims without proof. When it comes to earnings, lots of flow artists lie online. Not once has a single artist shared a pay stub, tax document, or even gig salad confirmation page for the average pay they claim to earn. There's just no proof that the rates that performers claim to charge on Business for Flow Artists, for example, an awesome Facebook group, are actually getting booked. I honestly believe that many flow artists have a scarcity mindset around gigs and subconsciously try to limit others by saying that everyone charges exorbitant amounts for their shows. When pressed, these artists get defensive and fail to produce proof that they maintain a $500 minimum. Once you start performing, you'll join these forums online where you'll see a lot of artists say, oh, if you don't charge at least $300, $400, $500 for a gig, you're hurting the community. It's like, I wouldn't take that many gigs if that's what I charged. They just don't pay that well. And so looking at their scarcity mindset, it's like they're using their experience as a soapbox to be like, only perform if you can earn this much. And I think they're just trying to prevent you from performing. They think there's only so many gigs to go around, and they want to get all of them by putting a sneaky trap in there for you not to perform. Now, this is just my hypothesis, and I never tell someone what their emotion or intention is, but I look for meaning in the world, and based on how defensive people get and how they attack my character when I talk about real numbers, they're not actually addressing the real questions I ask. They're just attacking me. To me, that's a defensive strategy where they're not actually prepared to argue the ideas and the numbers. They just are very emotional. And so you can safely assume a lot of artists you seek mentorship from have a scarcity mindset and lack the long-term vision that you have. Anyway, bringing it back, I could earn more, but I don't care enough. Now, as with any sales endeavor, I could do more cold calls and fill the funnel with higher paying gigs. I could only leave the house for $500, as we say. If I was constantly introducing myself to high paying clients like luxury apartments and private schools, I would have more $500 clients. Since I've let my sales slide since the spring season, I'm not earning as much per gig as I could be. The real question is, if you're earning $500 per gig, who are your clients? I have a diverse range of clients in rich neighborhoods. They still have budgets that top out before $500. I'd really like an avatar from these artists who make $500 per backyard barbecue. To wrap it up, let's talk about how you can keep the conversation flowing. When you're discussing free performances with other performers, feel free to ask them these questions. Am I not allowed to donate my time charitably? Can you provide proof of your rates? How else am I supposed to get stage time? Remember, only you can determine the value of your own art. Chapter 8. Embrace support roles. For years. As you read or listen, ponder. How do less talented artists get placement on performance rosters when there are more talented artists available? You'll learn how to recognize opportunities that could lead to performance slots down the road. Remember, support others and they'll support you. It's called reciprocity. If you want to jumpstart your career with a call to action, communicate a willingness to volunteer at events to promoters. Every artist takes a different road. There's no degree in flow arts. There's no way that your hard work translates to opportunities. There's no paid internship right out of college. There's no guaranteed path to your dream gig. So how are you supposed to guarantee placement on a performance roster? Well, do one of these first. You have to attend events as a paying patron, audience member, equipment carrier, video compilation editor, fire safety, door attendant, merch vendor, or stagehand first. These are all known as support roles. Let's break them down. A paying patron. Buy your ticket ahead of time, post about it leading up to the event, and tag the promoter and venue. Audience member. Simply be seen enjoying the show. This only goes for recurring gigs. Introduce yourself as a fan and fellow artist. Don't try to book yourself as a performer, just say you're happy to be there. Equipment carrier. Position yourself near a high traffic area and offer to carry heavy looking equipment. Video compilation editor. Make a recap of the show and email it to the promoter and venue. They often forget or neglect this task, and if you do it for them and it's actually good, that's just name recognition, baby. That's just good marketing for yourself. Fire safety. Offer to be a backup safety and crowd control. Door attendant. Find out who will be scanning tickets and putting wristbands on and offer to help them. It's kind of a thankless job, but somebody has to do it. Merch vendor. This one's kind of fun. I wrote, spin outside your vending setup and showcase your skills. That's what I would do. You could also just sell merch, hand out cards, or chat. For example, I have an upcoming festival called Ohm on the Range where I performed on the stage, but I really want to sell props. And so the way that I sell props is actually by spinning them, and people come up and go, oh, that's cool. What is that? And then they buy them. And finally, stagehand. Offer to carry stage props, stanchions, fuel, etc. You missed the show, but you'll see behind the scenes, which is a show in itself. Now, I wanted to perform at an event called Mystic Masquerade, but others were chosen for these slots. However, as usual, I offered to fulfill support roles. It turned out they needed a mask vendor. I accepted the role and wound up doing such a good job, they invited me back the next year to vend again and perform. The truth about show business. Not enough flow artists have worked in show business to understand the hard work behind the scenes. As a result, they miss a great opportunity to demonstrate value and emotional intelligence. Not enough hoopers have showed up early enough to see how many cables are involved in the sound system. Not enough poi spinners have stayed late enough to clean up those cables. Not enough staff spinners have studied what it takes to sell tickets to the events they perform at. As a result, they miss a great opportunity to reduce the stress of fellow performers. To put it simply, you have to lift others up before they want to lift you up. You have to give before you can receive. Reciprocity is a subtle yet powerful force. If you're extremely talented, sure, you may get a free ticket, VIP housing, stocked green room, and prime stage slot. However, if you're reading this book, you're probably not in the top 1% of performing artists. You probably need to leverage reciprocity. The easiest form of reciprocity. If you're wondering where to begin, you can start with social media. Make hype posts leading up to the event, detailing what you're looking forward to. Then make a dope compilation of your experience and post it after the event, tagging them and DMing them about how much fun you had and how you can contribute to the next event. This is especially helpful if you have no other way of meeting performers or promoters. Both of those groups love to check their social media notifications after the event, so it's your best chance to get noticed the next day or two afterward. Of course, social media is just the beginning of the journey to the stage. If the venue, promoters, or other artists have acknowledged your video about the event, you can introduce yourself and they'll have name recognition of you in the back of their mind. Congratulations, you made a good first impression. Now let's talk about bad first impressions. If you simply show up and want to help, remember this. You will damage your reputation if you're annoying. Simply introduce yourself as a resource and see if they express interest. If they do, great. If they say they don't need assistance, keep smiling and back off. For example, I once took a gig performing at a kid's birthday party. I brought a fellow flow artist along and immediately regretted it. As soon as we were in their backyard with all the kids, she started vaping, and it wasn't a little Juul either. It was one of those old school steam engine vapes, and she was blowing thick clouds. The damage was already done, but I told her to put it away. It didn't ruin the gig, but I could tell it irritated some of the moms that were there. Don't be like that person. Don't make a bad first impression. Now, you can get stuck in a support role. Yes, it would suck to get stuck in a role where you're a safety or a pack mule for the other artists, but I'll tell you this much. Proximity to performers leads to stage time. Stand out by wearing memorable clothing, praising the performers with specifics, and even offering to buy drinks for those who will talk to you. Think about it like this. It's way easier to network your way onto the stage if someone vouches for you being cool. Furthermore, I found that bringing snacks, extra makeup, extra fuel, chargers, lighters, and tripods gives me the reason to connect with the performers. Having these items boosts your credibility and triggers reciprocity. People want to help those who helped them. If you're not actively networking by showing up to events and supporting other artists, you're missing out on the fastest way to hit the stage, being part of the performer crew, socially. Now, there's a guy in Portland named the Celtic Oddity. I love this performer. Dude, the Celtic Oddity is crazy. Just real quick, every time he performs at Dante's, I staple dollar bills to his body and his tongue. So it's $1 anywhere on the body, I think $5 on the nips, $20 on the tongue, and $100 to some other places. It's the type of staples that go into like wood or a wall, so they go straight in, so it's a puncture wound. It's not like they curl around, but it is visually crazy. And this guy is got a huge beard. He usually wears a kilt. He's wild. Like, I never predicted him being this entertaining. When I first met him, he was so chill. So let's talk about the Celtic oddity. There's a gentleman in Portland who has earned his way onto the performance crew in a few of my recurring gigs. He kept showing up and adding positive energy as an audience member. I liked his vibe and wanted to work with him, so I introduced him to the promoter online. I eventually introduced him to her in person, too. He got exactly what he wanted, a referral and an introduction. He had just enough promo to impress her, and voila, she booked him. So what exactly did he do to earn my respect? Surprisingly, not that much. I just liked him. So this is an example of how performers shape future shows. They bring on people that support them. It's a natural human tendency. Like, dude just kept showing up and hyping me up at all my fire shows, saying that he liked it, that it was really cool, he liked the music, and just complimenting me. And even though I knew what he was doing, reciprocity still kicked in, and I helped him get that gig. Now, I'll admit, I was skeptical at first. I didn't make the introduction right away. But once I saw him at a few of our events, and once he proved his vibe was positive and consistent, I approved of him. I saw him at the Flow Arts meetup a few times, I saw him at the circus school to practice, and I saw him at the cabaret. I think the concept of familiarity played a large role in my decision to advocate him. The two dangers of a performer's ego. There may be a small voice inside you that speaks negatively about support roles. You might think that your skills supersedes the need to form a cohesive team. There's a chance that your ego is a liability. When I look at the best performers in Portland, they fulfill many roles. From teaching kids at festivals to shoveling coals at the firewalk, they're involved in the scene beyond the stage. They leave positive impacts from both high and low vibrational energy sources. They understand that the ego is fun to embrace in small doses, but gets in the way of many tribal and group rituals. I've seen many performers leave the stage feeling sad that they messed up a part of their act. However, if their ego was in check, they'd be happy just to be there. I've seen many performers leave the stage feeling smug that they nailed their whole act, but since they hadn't connected with anybody personally throughout the event, they had nobody to validate their pride at a deeper meaning, at a deeper level. I've been the performer who showed up just for my slot, did an okay job, and left without much interaction. It feels hollow. It feels like work. What truly makes a performer valuable and satisfied is fulfilling support roles along with lead roles. So to wrap it up, when you're trying to find support roles, ask a promoter these questions. If there was one job that you could outsource, what would it be? Can I come and help as a floater? Chapter 9. You won't get the gig when you want it. As you read or listen, ponder. How can we apply our pitch to perform after we've been turned down? You'll learn how to circle back to promoters and clients with new information. Remember, it takes an average of 5 positive interactions before a decision maker books an artist. If you want to jumpstart your career with action, plan a series of visits to build a strategic relationship. In other words, don't ask for the performance contract or the slot until you've chatted about other things first. Life is long if we let it be. When it comes to performing contracts, patience is the mentality that many flow artists lack, which is ironic considering the countless hours they put into the craft itself. If artists thought in year-long spans, they'd see that relationships are more important than contracts. In other words, they'd see that building trust happens over the course of several meetings, not just one. After all, clients like to sleep on a pitch and let their subconscious decide if it's a good investment for their venue. An artist's pitch, when combined with well-timed follow-ups, is more effective because it implies that you have other options in the meantime. It's a very subconscious dynamic, and basically what you want to know is that this is sales, and sales takes more than one interaction to close. Let's talk about Lulu's and the Bay. Those are 2 restaurants. When I lived in Florida, I drove past several restaurants with huge outdoor dining areas. Many of them were perfect for fire spinning because they had private beaches on the bay. I took my time getting to know their website, physical layout, culture, music, and schedule of events. I familiarized myself with what makes them the most money, the turnover of tables. Right? In a restaurant, the more people you have come in and eat, the more checks you get, etc. So using their main priority of profit, I sort of set up my timing and my schedule of when these meetings occurred. I familiarized myself with their target demographic, families on vacation. I familiarized myself with the times of day that they had a lot of cars in the parking lot, 5:30 p.m., When I went to introduce myself, all I did was drop a card and let them know I exist. I did that on the first day with a big smile. Then I returned and asked to see the manager. It took me 3 visits before I even met that guy, and I still remember him to this day. His name's Michael. All he did was shake my hand and set the next appointment. The process took at least 3 months just to get that first meeting, but I realized this. A good venue I want to perform at is going to be extremely busy. That being said, the managers are going to be busy. The decision makers are going to be busy worrying about making money, not planning my show. With this in mind, my priority was simply to show them that I'm easy to work with. I didn't want to show them a demonstration. I didn't want them to watch my Instagram. I didn't even want them to meet me until they had an open mind. Because progress takes different routes for everyone. In many ways, impatience is a performer's biggest hindrance. Whether we perceive that our following is too small, our bodies are out of shape, our props aren't expensive enough, our troupe lacks variety, or our costumes aren't professional enough, there will always be an excuse. We need to be patient with ourselves because we won't get the dream gig until we do some less desirable ones. Always use a 6 out of 10 gig to pitch to a 7 out of 10 gig. Once you get it, use that 7 out of 10 gig to get an 8 out of 10 gig. Then repeat the process until you have your dream gig. And the way that this interacts with patience is that if you're impatient about getting your dream gig, that's not the right way to approach it. You want to be patient, right? If, say, you want to perform at a huge festival and you want to do fire on stage with the DJ, you're going to have to perform probably for several years on dinky little stages without fire to music you don't like. That's just the reality. If it was easy, then everyone would do it. This convoluted path to get on those amazing dream gig slots only happens after you've done tons of other gigs. Now, you may go out there and talk to people who never fulfilled support roles, who got the gig right away. They're probably genetically gifted. They're probably absolutely gorgeous as a person, have amazing muscle tone, have a really nice vocal tone, and have no controversial presence at all. So they're just fully supported by their community. I've seen some of these people, right? It's like their whole life is perfect online. And those people do get booked. They don't have to be patient. I'm not that person. You're probably not that person. So we need to be patient with ourselves. And this is measured in years. If you already read my chapter on support roles, you know that you have to work your way up to a prime stage slot. In general, artists are impatient. It's our biggest hindrance when it comes to landing a dream gig. Maybe we don't have enough followers. We're not in good enough shape. Our flames are too small. We don't have a big enough troupe, or our costumes aren't professional enough. All that being said, those are little incremental improvements we can make over time. I know I repeated myself a little bit there, but I really want to help flow artists think in 3, 5, or 10 year spans. Your dream gig is a culmination of so many different skills. It's not just spinning or juggling. It's marketing, it's pitching, it's following up. It's all these different skills, and you have to practice those skills at different venues before it happens smoothly. Your dream gig will take more planning than you think. I want you to think about your dream venue and gig in your city. Now imagine the application process to be a manager there. They would probably have at least 5 interviews, a group of people making the decision, a conversation about salary, and a competitive process to ensure the best applicants get chosen. That's all for a position that already exists, the manager. Now imagine that you have to create a position. You have to create the demand and value for an artistic performance. You'll have meetings where you explain what you do. That's probably at least 3 meetings. To even get that first meeting started, you need the patience to research the venue, introduce yourself at the right time, and probably get canceled on once or twice. Managers reserve the right to cancel on proactive vendors such as yourself. Don't take it personally. It's part of the process. I got canceled on many times before I landed that big gig. I just stayed positive and friendly throughout the process. Now, let's look at the benefit of these gigs taking a long time. Once you have the gig, you'll benefit from patient managers. I want you to imagine that you already have a dream gig in your city. It took you 6 months to get it, and you're finally secure there, performing once a month for $500. Now imagine this. Another performer comes in and pitches themselves for a lower price. Maybe they've seen your videos online, and they're like, oh, I live near there, and I can do that. They're not as good as you, and they don't offer what you offer because they just started performing. Wouldn't you want that venue to take their time in defending you as the incumbent performer? Wouldn't you want that venue to take their time keeping you as an employee or contractor there? Wouldn't you want that venue to be patient in making the decision to switch performance troops? The answer is obviously yes. You would want them to be patient because it benefits you. The same goes for piano players, DJs, magicians, and singers. Those are all the well-known acts that eat up the budgets of big restaurants and plazas. You will be taking business away from somebody else, and you have to be patient because that's just part of the game. All right, this paragraph's a little bit confusing. What I'm trying to say here is when you're on the outside looking in, when things take forever, it's really frustrating and demoralizing. But once you're performing somewhere and you have a relationship, slow-moving processes actually benefit you. Here's 10 positive affirmations you can tell yourself to remain patient. Great works are performed not by strength, but by perseverance. Samuel Johnson. A stumble may prevent a fall. Thomas Fuller. One moment of patience may ward off great disaster. One moment of impatience may ruin a whole life. Chinese proverb. Patience is not simply the ability to wait, it's how we behave while we're waiting. Joyce Meyer. Two things define you: your patience when you have nothing and your attitude when you have everything. George Bernard Shaw. I like this one a lot. Trees that are slow to grow bear the best fruit. Moliere. Patience is the support of weakness. Impatience is the ruin of strength. Charles Caleb Colton. All men commend patience, although few are willing to practice it. Thomas A. Kempis. We could never learn to be brave and patient if there was only joy in the world. Helen Keller. I must endure the presence of a few caterpillars if I wish to become acquainted with the butterflies. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. To clarify, I'm not saying you should twiddle your thumbs after sending an email. You should have enough different prospects where you genuinely don't mind waiting several weeks to hear back from them. If you stagger your outreach, you'll start hearing back from like one per week, and that will make patience much easier to practice. I'm going to repeat that. The more reach outs that you do, the more drop-ins you do, the more patient you'll actually be, because you'll be waiting to hear back from 10 people, and they'll each get back to you at different times. But if you're just waiting on one, you'll constantly be checking that one to see if they get back to you. Patron first, performer second. As the previous chapter mentioned, it's important to attend events as a patron. If you're not willing to familiarize yourself with the experience of the audience, it's actually difficult to create a good performance. This is because every venue has a different viewing angle, stage width, sound system, lighting setup, and ceiling height. It also looks good for the decision makers if you show up to their event dressed up nicely, take pictures of the event, tip the bartenders, and cheer on the current performers. Even if it's just a restaurant, you can still get an appetizer and take notes on what other guests are doing. When I was applying to perform at restaurants in Florida, I made sure to get a drink and work on my laptop at the bar. I asked the bartender questions about what kinds of entertainers they hired. I asked them how they dealt with rowdy kids. I asked them if they had a social media presence. I asked if my shows would enhance that presence. I researched methodically until I knew what the manager would like to hear. So, sales is not about crafting the perfect post or the perfect pitch. It's about connecting with people. If you go to a venue and connect with people, you'll pick up so many cues and tips on how to get the gig. I know this isn't always possible, but when you're first starting, you actually want recurring gigs. You actually want to go to restaurants and little party venues where you can talk to bartenders or door people, because the recurring nature of it means you can do one for free and then you can build hype over time. This is just my thought. I don't see any other way for beginning performers to get good besides being patient and connecting with these venues. Because at the beginning, they're kind of doing you a favor. Nobody knows how good you are yet, right? Connect with people off stage. At my recurring gig in Portland, I try to go as often as I can. I tip the performers, bartenders, hosts, and safeties, even when I'm not performing. I use their first names and ask if they need rides home. I cheer loudly and encourage the rest of the crowd to do the same. I dress nicely and try to bring dates. I hug everyone that wants a hug. I emotionally validate everyone I talk to. I ask how their pets are doing. I buy their merch. Needless to say, I fill the support role, and it requires a lot of patience. I didn't learn all their names in one weekend. It's taken years of attending as a patron to gain this comfort. It's also less daunting to perform when you're comfortable at a venue. When people smile at you when you enter the room, the butterflies in your stomach may flap less frantically. Hugs reduce heart rates. I'm always comfortable at my recurring gig in Portland because I'm surrounded by friends. I encourage you to do the same. Be patient because performer friendships don't develop right away. Everyone is focused on their act and it's hard to bond right before or after someone performs. Just be there, ready to connect when they show some curiosity about you. To recap, when establishing long-lasting relationships with promoters or event planners, probe for potential with these questions. Who are your favorite business partners? What do they do for you? What are your long-term goals with this event and venue? Do you need any backup performers for this event? Remember, it takes an average of 5 positive interactions before a decision maker books an artist. Chapter 10. The best marketing photos involve crowds. As you read or listen, ponder, how can we leverage the bandwagon effect to maximize our opportunities? You'll learn how to leverage key moments of performances to boost your upcoming marketing results. Remember, people want what other people enjoy. If you want to jumpstart your performance career with a call to action, plan a way to get a picture of you in front of a crowd. Let's talk about the bandwagon effect. In human psychology, the bandwagon effect is powerful. Therefore, you can leverage the concept of pre-selection to get new clients, to view you as a guaranteed crowd pleaser. You want to capture moments where large groups of people are dedicating attention to you. After all, attention is hard to come by nowadays, and if you can earn that hot commodity, you must be special. As you create a bandwagon around yourself, you'll realize this. It's optimal to use each opportunity to get the next. It's painful to admit, but we often get the chance to date a 9 because they saw us dating an 8. While beauty is in the eye of the beholder, some gigs are more competitive than others, and we won't get a chance to bid on the slot without evidence of our skill. Start small and work your way up. A bandwagon takes many small gigs to construct, nurture, and leverage. I've been turned down to DJ weddings because I had no footage of me DJing. I've never lost a Flow Arts performance client for this reason because I have 75 plus professional photos of me on stage. I've even done photo shoots of me standing in front of my DJ equipment, but it didn't provide any social proof because there was no crowd. I'm grateful for the prospects who told me straight up, we don't want to hire you because you have no good photos of you in front of a crowd. I love this quote. My old landlord once told me, our brains are in our eyes, and he was right. Priorities. On that note, your makeup and subtle costume accessories aren't as important as your overall body position, your overall body posture and position on the stage. Anybody can nail a close-up, but not everybody can strike a confident pose in front of a crowd. As you begin to collect promotional photos in front of crowds, you'll pinpoint the most aesthetic moments of your act. It takes a long time. When I was performing in Destin at AJ's, it was really hard to get photos of me in front of a crowd. I actually climbed on nearby roofs and set up my iPhone 6, zoomed in on the exact spot where I would be standing, and took probably at least 10 hours of video and would go through and screenshot it every summer and find the best moments of me in front of the crowd. Needless to say, it won't happen unless you plan it. Over the last decade, I've been collecting marketing photos. The collection grows by about 3 good photos per year. I get lots of videos, but photos are unicorns. I've learned that the most effective technique is to pose and flow. Follow these steps. First, plan a specific moment and angle to capture. Second, plan to face the camera as part of the act. Third, make sure there's a clear shot to see your fire or LED tracer and your face at the same time. If you can, make sure someone in the audience reacts to it. Like a really surprised or happy face is gold for your marketing material. Marketing photo aesthetics. Here are some tips to improve your marketing photo aesthetics. When throwing a prop in the air, try to keep your mouth shut. When flowing, try to look out into the audience, not down at the ground. The best photos of fire performances are when you first light the prop. That's when the flames are biggest and most impressive. It's a lot of pressure to put on the beginning of the act, but that's really when I like to get my best photos. It's within 30 seconds of lighting the props. Build a smile into your act somewhere and hold it for a few seconds. This will give the photographer, or your phone, a chance to get a few photos worth and capture it on video, and then go back and screenshot it. Film the act from eye level on a tall tripod. Acts filmed from below just they look weird. If the stage is symmetrical, try to get as many shots as possible from the direct center. The framing makes the photo more professional. You can also put the camera in the back of the stage and aim it at you and also the audience. You can capture their facial expressions. I recommend sort of hiding the camera if you can do that. It's hard to get good photos. It's hard to capture a truly good photo of a performance in front of a large crowd. It's going to take a lot of practice getting the autofocus and exposure right if you want to burn off or LED tracers. The ratio will be at least 100 bad photos for every one good photo. It's why Flow Festival photographers shoot over 10,000 photos for a weekend. They end up posting about 100 good ones. Many iPhone cameras create what are called artifacts in their videos and photos. I call them ghost flames or ghost tracers. They don't ruin your photo, but they look unprofessional. This is because iPhone cameras have a lens setup that isn't designed for a dark scene with a bright light moving around it. So unless you have a good lighting, your phone camera will always look unprofessional. I'm not saying you can't use your phone, but if you want to market to high-end companies, you'll need a proper camera or a photographer. As I researched this, I'm pretty sure it's the sensor size that causes those ghost flames. It may be the type of glass they use. It reflects the light. Like, iPhones are amazing, but that low light with the flame, it just always creates those dang artifacts, and you definitely want to avoid those for trying to pitch to professional gigs. Pause and pose more often. This subtle shift will help you get far more usable photos. Pose every so often throughout the act. I learned this from hoopers. They often do tricks where they stand still and rotate the hoop around a leg or a hand and then stare at the audience. Think of it like an isolation. They're isolating their entire body, especially their face, while the prop moves. That way, there's a tracer on the prop while their body is still. So find patterns you can do that show prop movement but not body movement. Fire and LED performances tend to happen in low lighting settings, but the props are quite bright, which confuses autofocus and auto ISO on cameras. The computer within the camera tries to capture a low light scene, so the flames and LEDs turn white and wash out. On the other hand, the camera may try to capture the bright flame, and while it looks good, the rest of the shot sort of fades into darkness. The solution is to choose a pose you enjoy and hold it until your camera or photographer can adjust settings to capture it perfectly. A final tip I didn't include in the book, but that I've noticed, is actually shots where the fire goes behind you is really good too. Like a behind the head weave or a behind the back weave, if your body positioning is good, can be really good because then you can still see that there's flames there, but your face isn't blocked by a tracer. Yeah, it's really important to get not only the crowd in there, but like a shot of your face. Human brains are wired to respond to faces, so always try to include yours. And I should mention flow faces. Flow faces are hilarious, and I love to see people biting their lip or cross-eyed or whatever it is, but never use like a cringy flow face as marketing material. It should always be a smile or a more stoic look. Moving on, craft a narrative. The narrative surrounding the photo is just as impactful as the quality of the photo. In other words, the context around the performer appeals just as much as the art itself. I admit, I have used low-quality photos to get clients. It's harder because I had to do more to prove that I'm serious, but they saw that I've done it before and acknowledge that it's expensive to get good photos. I believe that most clients actually understand that a truly excellent photo would be hard to produce. I've even used pictures of other fire spinners and just said, I can do this. Is that cheating? I don't know. The client relates to the audience, not the flow artist. They're often looking at the audience for cues on how they will likely react to your art. They're also wondering how their clientele will react. If they see a happy child and their clientele is comprised of children, the client has a narrative that supports their decision to hire you. If you engage the crowd with simple interactions such as a high five, you can include a caption that says, interactive entertainment. Even though interaction is only 1% of your act, the picture still proves that you will make a memorable character for the audience. No crowd? No problem. Now, if you can't get a picture of you with the crowd, you can always just use an empty stage. There in every city and many venues will let you just go get a few pictures there. This is also helpful because viewers imagine a crowd. It also shows that you took the time to leave your living room and that you have a vision and standards for your performance art. Now, to recap this final chapter, remember, if you're speaking to a client and want to leverage the bandwagon effect, ask these questions to keep the conversation flowing. Have you ever seen a fire dancing performance before? Would it help you if a bunch of your guests posted videos from this event? People often film me when I perform with fire. Can you recommend any other venues who might want a fire show as well? Remember, people want what other people enjoy. All right, folks, here's the conclusion. Now that we've discussed the process of putting yourself out there, the journey can begin. Remember, the first few pitches are the hardest. Once you feel the success of performing at a venue where you initiated and maintained a professional relationship, you'll be ready to do it again. I'm available as a resource. Message me. I may add you to a private group chat where we discuss strategies like the ones in this book. Artists, I look forward to seeing you on stage.